Hi, my name is Dr.
Gaukhar Baidildinova.
This video is a part of my lectures on evidence-based medicine and epidemiology. Conferences are my favorite part of being a researcher. Picture this: a fancy conference hall, coffee breaks, delicious cakes, and smart people all around, and it's all paid for by your employer. What could be more wonderful? The main goal of scientific conferences is the exchange of knowledge and experience between researchers. But there are other practical aspects as well. Popularizing your research. Conferences offer you the chance to promote your research and make yourself known. Self-promotion is important. Remember, you're doing research, generating results, and you must share your findings, whether it's writing about them or speaking about them at conferences. If you're doing great work and no one knows about it, you're essentially doing nothing. Networking. Networking is a natural extension of the previous point. Conferences allow you to meet potential research partners or even employers. A casual conversation with a professor you admire, a friendly chat, and a smile might just improve your chances of landing a residency, doctoral, or postdoctoral position. It really works. I got offers for 2 doctoral positions this way, one from a professor in the States and another from Thessaloniki. A postdoc from Moscow I met at UCL also landed his job through networking at a conference. Always check the speaker list. You never know where an opportunity might arise. Educational opportunities. Conferences during doctoral studies also have an educational purpose. They give you the chance to practice public speaking, a skill many people fear. Additionally, you can earn ECTS credits for attending conferences, which are required to complete a doctoral degree. Informational conferences. Some conferences are focused purely on informing attendees. You might be invited to such events even without submitting an abstract. These are often aimed at doctors and pharmacists to raise awareness about certain issues, such as antibiotic resistance or the benefits of vaccination. Take the example of a regular Kazakhstani doctor. They don't read PubMed or engage in scientific debates on Facebook. So how do you get their attention? By organizing a conference in a beautiful location and providing them with food. In Kazakhstan, these kinds of conferences are often sponsored by pharmaceutical companies as part of their obligations to the state. So, how do I find conferences? Don't hesitate to ask your supervisors, postdocs, and fellow doctoral students in your lab. They likely have recommendations based on their own experiences. Another method is to look at the resumes or LinkedIn profiles of key people in your field, such as research group leaders or well-known professors, or your colleagues. This can help you identify important conferences. Of course, the most obvious way is to Google it. It's a simple, effective way to find relevant conferences in your field. Let me share a bit of my personal experience. I did my PhD in the field of thrombosis and hemostasis, and as a doctoral student at 2 universities, I had access to conferences hosted by both institutions. I didn't need to pay any fees or prepare materials to attend. This is common if you're on the organizing side. My 2 universities are located in 2 different countries, and each has its own thrombosis and hemostasis society, Dutch and German. The next level is the European Conference, and the highest level is the International Society on Thrombosis and Hemostasis, ISTH. Participating in ISTH is considered the most prestigious. However, you're not geographically restricted. You can attend conferences from the American Society of Hematology, or the Asian Pacific Society of Thrombosis and Hemostasis as well. For example, let's take a look at the GTH conference, the event held in Leipzig during the first few days of March. To participate, you must submit an abstract. The deadline for submission is usually 5 months before the conference itself, so make sure you note the abstract submission deadlines in your planner. The abstract should be up to 3,000 characters, or about 250 to 300 words. The structure should follow the standard format: introduction, methods, results, and conclusions. The system often restricts the number of characters in the title, so you need to make sure you stay within the limits. If you exceed the allowed character count, the system will not accept the submission. You cannot submit already published data in the abstract, but you can later use what you've submitted in the full paper. If your abstract is accepted, you can either prepare a poster or give an oral presentation. I also have 2 paid courses on Udemy. The critical assessment of clinical studies teaches how to read and critically evaluate clinical studies. It's a very great course. The same as my second course, Scientific Writing, where I tell all the nuances of how to write a scientific article or dissertation. Links are in the description box. Now let's talk about funding for conferences. As you can imagine, everyone wants to attend a conference. In my case, I didn't have any issues with funding because the Cardio program had a budget for conferences, and this budget hadn't been used due to the COVID pandemic. Funding is often allocated at the beginning of the project. If your program doesn't cover conference expenses, you can ask your university for funding or explore outside organizations that offer grants or funds specifically for conference attendance. In some cases, you might need to attend conferences at your own expense, but you can always combine the pleasant, a trip to a conference, with the useful, gathering important knowledge. Since networking is a major goal of conferences, it's essential to make a good impression. Here are 3 simple tips. Know your topic. You'll definitely be asked questions about your research, so be prepared to discuss it in detail. Do your research. If you're aiming to network with specific individuals like potential employers or professors, make sure to research them beforehand. Check their background, their work, and their areas of expertise. This will help make your conversation more meaningful and targeted. Charm. Being charming is a skill that can be developed. You can start with books like Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. One of the most basic tips is to smile, be enthusiastic, and be willing to make contact.